Well, good morning, everybody, and welcome to the Built Heritage Committee meeting of February 10th, 2026. I'd like to call the members to order. This hybrid meeting is being facilitated through Zoom and is being held on the traditional territory of the Algonquin Anishinaabe Nation, the original custodians of the unceded land in which the City of Ottawa is located. We extend our respect to all First Nations, Inuit, and Métis people for their valuable past and present contributions to this land. Since this committee meeting is being streamed live on the Ottawa City Council YouTube channel, I'd like to remind participants to keep your microphones muted until I call upon you to speak. For those participating here in the committee room, please use the microphone in front of you and keep your computer muted. I will provide each committee member with the opportunity to ask questions or comment on each item in the order in which they raise their hand in Zoom. For panelists, the raise hand option is found at the bottom of the participants list. For those calling in, press *9 to raise your hand. The committee coordinator and I will be watching for those cues. Members are also reminded to submit any motions, visual supports, or declarations of interest in writing to the coordinator at their earliest opportunity. Although the deadlines have passed for residents to register to speak and provide written submissions to this committee, residents can make written submissions to council. A reminder that if participants are having technical issues with their Zoom connection, they may call in using the backup telephone number provided by the coordinator. I did receive regrets from Councillor Kelly this morning. Could the committee coordinator call the roll?
Councillor Leeper.
Here.
Councillor Troster.
Here.
Member Borns.
Present.
Member Legault. I believe we saw Member Legault online. Member Madigan.
Here.
Member Quinn.
Present, yep.
Vice Chair Plante.
Ici.
Chair King.
Here.
And one last time for Member Legault.
Here.
You have quorum, Mr. Chair.
Thank you so much. Are there any declarations of interest? Seeing none, confirmation of minutes. Are the minutes of the Built Heritage Committee meeting of January 22nd confirmed?
Confirmed.
Confirmed. Thank you so much. We'll now move to a consent agenda for our substantive items on our agenda this morning. The first item is heritage permit for alterations at 110-116 York Street. We did receive correspondence from Heritage Ottawa. The only registered speakers are representatives of the owner. If the committee were to approve this application, would there be a need to address the committee? So I see that Member Borns wishes to hold this item, so we will have a presentation on this item. The next item is 159 Montreal Road, a resolution for appeal. We did receive correspondence from Heritage Ottawa, and there are a number of delegations for that item as well. We do require a motion to waive this item onto the agenda, so I'll ask Vice Chair Plante to read that item in. And she might be having problems. I don't see her online. I'm wondering if Member Quinn might be willing to read the item in.
Oh, Chair, I'm here. Sorry about that. I've had some technical issues. My volume wasn't working.
Okay, so
sorry about that.
Stand down.
okay, excellent.
Thank you, though.
So we have Plante.
Thank you. Whereas the report titled 159 Chemin Montréal, resolution of appeal was not circulated with the agenda, therefore be it resolved that pursuant to subsection 89.3 of the procedure bylaw, the Built Heritage Committee approved that the rules of procedure be suspended to allow for the consideration of the item, and I apologize again for the delay.
And is that motion carried?
Carried.
Thank you so much. So that item will be placed on our agenda. We can now start with item 4.1, Heritage Permit for Alterations at 110, 116 York Street for a presentation by staff. And we're just working to get the presentation up.
Good morning, Mr. Chair, members of the committee. This presentation is about an application to alter 110, 116 York Street. It is for an addition to the existing Andaz Hotel. Next slide, please. Oh, sorry, it looks like there's something mixed up between, I think that might be my fault. I apologize. This application under the Ontario Heritage Act builds upon the previously approved addition to the Andaz Hotel, which is shown on the English slide. I apologize that the French slide doesn't correspond. The application was approved by committee and council in 2023, and some of the construction is underway. The previously approved application shown on the slide only included the parcel of land at 110 York Street. The applicant has since acquired the vacant lot adjacent to this property at 116 York. Next slide, please. To give you a sense of the site, the existing Andaz Hotel is shown in the photo, and then on the map to the right, you'll see it's highlighted in red or orange. The yellow indicates the boundary of the Heritage Conservation District, so the Byward Market Heritage Conservation District. And then the property in question is immediately to the right of the red, so 116 and 110 York Street. And then the broader property, which is owned by the applicant, is outlined in red. There is an adjacent 22-story high-rise building being built at 137, 141 George Street, just outside of the boundary of the HCD. So just to give you a sense of kind of all of the things that are happening on this block, this proposal is for an addition to the existing Andaz. To the rear, outside of the boundary of the HCD, we have a 22-story high-rise. And then to the east at 126 York Street, there is an ongoing construction project, which you can see in the photo, for a high-rise mixed-use building. Next slide, please. So again, just to orient you, the red is the existing Andaz Hotel. The yellow is the parcel under consideration through this application, and the orange is 137, 141 George Street, which is the neighboring property that is currently under construction. There are some shared parking and other amenities between both buildings. That's why I'm showing you the whole block together. And just to give you a sense, there is an associated official plan amendment and zoning bylaw amendment under consideration for this addition to the Andaz as well. And I do have Andrew McCrate, the manager for Development Review Central, on the call if there are any questions from committee members about the planning side of things. Next slide, please. So the proposal before the committee today is for a 17-story addition to the Andaz Hotel. It's very similar to the previous project in form, height, massing, materials, and design. The podium is 3 stories, clad in red brick. The tower portion is set back 9 meters from York Street to provide transition from the low-rise streetscape. On the east elevation, adjacent to the development at 126 York, the tower is proposed to be set back 7 meters. The upper floors of the building would be clad in a mix of brick and aluminum panels, and the project also includes 4 levels of underground parking to be shared with the residential building at 137, 141 George. Next slide, please. This slide shows the east and south elevations of the building. On the right-hand side of the screen is the east elevation. An art installation is proposed along this blank wall, which would face the Heritage Building and new development at 126 York. The proposed total height is 59.12 meters, which is 17 stories. The previous approval was for 16 stories. To give you context, this is generally the same height as the existing Andaz Hotel. Next slide, please. The proposal has been reviewed against the policies and guidelines in the Byward Market Heritage Conservation District Plan, and staff have determined that it is consistent with the plan in the following ways. It results in the removal of a vacant lot in the HCD and a site and building design that will make a positive contribution to York Street through its setback, discrete parking access off of Dalhousie Street, and purposeful change in materiality above the podium. The form, mass, articulation of the podium help to mitigate impacts of the increased height on York. Location and design support the conservation of the defined attributes of the HCD. This meaning it's at the edge of the district, it's outside of the core of the Byward Market building and the surrounding streets. The 3-story volume of the podium and the deep setback of the tower helps to reduce the visual impact of the addition on the streetscape, and the flat roof of the podium and its horizontal and vertical divisions take inspiration from surrounding historical buildings. As an addition to the existing high-rise hotel at the edge of the HCD, it means that the project will have minimal impact on the core of the HCD, including the Byward Market building. And then finally, the addition uses compatible materials and reflects the podium reflects the architectural characteristics of nearby contributing buildings to be sensitive to its context. Next slide, please. This slide is just to give you a side-by-side of the 2023 approval versus today. So the previously approved proposal is on the right-hand side of the screen, and the new proposal that is before committee today is on the left-hand side of the screen. Next slide, please. In terms of consultation, Heritage Ottawa and the Lowertown Community Association were notified of the application. Councillor Plante has been notified, and neighbours within 60 meters were notified of the application. Next slide, please. Staff are recommending approval of this application subject to a number of conditions. The first is to revise the brick on the tower to be more compatible with the HCD. The proposed brick is dark gray or black. Staff recommend that the brick on the tower be revised to be more compatible with surrounding context, and the applicant has agreed to work with staff on this matter. Conditions B and C are standard conditions that we generally include in any approval for a heritage permit. Condition D has been included to ensure that the proposed light or art installation on the east facade meets the objectives of the HCD plan and is developed in consultation with both the city and the Lowertown Community Association. And then finally, a condition has been included to ensure that a final lighting and signage plan is provided to staff prior to the issuance of a building permit. Next slide, please. So in conclusion, the department recommends approval of this application subject to the conditions outlined previously. The recommendations also include the standard delegation of authority for minor design changes and the issuance of a heritage permit with 2-year expiry. Finally, the proposal is generally consistent with the HCD plan, and while not specifically related to the HCD plan, it will facilitate the construction of new hotel accommodations in the market, which in turn will support the economic development and tourism goals for the Byward Market. Happy to answer any questions the committee might have.
Thank you so much for that presentation. The applicant team is here available for questions, and they are registered to speak. So I just wanted to check whether they wanted to proceed with a presentation at this time. I understand that they might have one. Okay, I think there might be interest in availability to answer questions. So thank you so much for your presence here. This item was held by Member Borns. Questions for staff or for the applicant team?
I'm just wondering why this property is included within the Heritage Conservation District.
The Heritage Conservation District for the Byward Market was established in 1991 through a fairly rigorous study undertaken by Julian Smith and Associates. And this section of York Street in particular was included to capture both sides of the street as the gateway to the market. So the building immediately adjacent at 126 York Street is a contributing building in the district, and the buildings on the other side of York Street are contributing buildings in the district. So these are the very edge of the district. And so inevitably, you end up, when you draw a boundary, you end up capturing some properties that do not contribute to the overall character of the area.
And as I look at the application, the red brick, might be a deviation, but what else in the requirements couldn't have been accomplished under the Heritage, under the Planning Act?
Through you, Mr. Chair, one of the key pieces that we focused on in this application from a heritage perspective was about the streetscape along York Street and implementing a setback of that tower to provide relief at the pedestrian scale. And this is supported through the secondary plan for this area as well, that York Street with its wide right-of-way and its central boulevard provides a gateway into the core of the Byward Market. And so we have worked very closely with our planning colleagues on this application for many, many years. There have been a number of iterations of it.
Thank you for those questions. Are there any other questions from committee members? Seeing none, is this item carried?
Carried.
Carried. Thank you so much. So this report.
I wanted to comment on it, just to say that I don't think there's any distinct changes that couldn't have been accommodated under the Planning Act. And the question is whether the planning department takes a good look at heritage areas and looks at particularly setbacks as an issue. But I would dissent on the recommendations that the applicant deal with the heritage department on the design and approach of the building.
Okay, so the dissent is noted. Once again, I'm just going to ask, is the item carried? Carried with this from Member Borns. So this report will be submitted to Council on February 25th, 2026. Our next item is item 4.2, 159 Montreal Road, Resolution of Appeal. And we can now proceed with a presentation by staff.
Good morning. This presentation is for the resolution of an appeal to the Ontario Land Tribunal for the property at 159 Montreal Road. Next slide. The building was constructed circa 1885. It's located on the north side of Montreal Road at Desrochers Street. It's the oldest commercial building on Montreal Road in Vanier. Next slide, please. Just some background on the file. The property was originally recommended for designation in September of 2024. Staff determined it met 4 of the 9 criteria for designation. We received an objection in October 2024, and Council subsequently affirmed its decision to designate the property. An appeal to the decision was received in February 2025, and an OLT hearing was scheduled for past December. In advance of the hearing, City staff met with the legal representatives for the property owner to work through any issues or concerns they had and provide clarity regarding the future development. Next slide, please. So the staff report today outlines the agreed upon actions from these conversations, and there's 2 recommendations. The first is to support an amendment to the Statement of Cultural Heritage Value, and the second is to approve heritage guidelines for redevelopment for the site. And I'll just go through those two recommendations. Next slide, please. So the first is this amendment to the Statement of Cultural Heritage Value. You can see the amendments in red up there on the screen. So we propose to remove the specific reference to the building's location on the corner of Desrochers Street. The reason we're doing that is to allow the building to be relocated on the site. The location and orientation of the building along Montreal Road will be maintained through this revised wording. Next slide, please. The second recommendation speaks to these heritage guidelines for redevelopment. The guidelines are attached in the staff report, but they provide direction on several items. The first is the conservation of the heritage attributes of the building that have been identified. The second, as I already mentioned, is the idea that the building can be relocated on the site so long as its orientation and location on Montreal Road is maintained. The guidelines speak to the importance of the building incorporation, so we are looking for what we call meaningful incorporation in terms of either the building in its entirety or ensuring that that three-dimensional volume is maintained so that side roof, side gable profile remains visible. We confirm that as per the city's official plan, we'll contemplate a density transfer on site. And then we just speak to additional application requirements that would be required. So the Planning Act application and the Ontario Heritage Act application. Next slide, please. So I think we're missing one of the slides up top. Oh, there we go. So in terms of next step, the appellant is in agreement with this approach. And if these recommendations are approved by committee and council, then the city will seek an amendment to the designating bylaw through the Ontario Land Tribunal. And I'll just note we have staff from our legal services here in case there's any questions regarding that. Thank you.
Thank you so much for the presentation. We did receive correspondence on this item from Heritage Ottawa, and we do have two delegations registered to speak, the first being Chris Greenshields from the Vanier Community Association. Okay.
Thank you, Chair. I'm speaking on behalf of the Vanier Community Association, the VCA. The VCA welcomes the staff report and recommendations concerning the resolution of this appeal through the Ontario Land Tribunal. This heritage property, Épicerie du Rocher, has been an important part of Vanier and Montreal Road since 1865. It represents one of the few long-standing buildings remaining in Vanier's French Quarter as designated under the Montreal Road District Secondary Plan. We consider the proposed approach, which would retain the building in full as part of the redevelopment of the site, covering 159 Montreal Road and 268 du Rocher, together with 143 Montreal Road, an assembly of lots which provides an opportunity for a significant redevelopment at a key location at the corner of Montreal Road and the Vanier Parkway, once the route of the railway which served Vanier's early development. The building has served the community since its construction, first as a grocery store, general store, and until now as several popular restaurants. Its relocation on the site with suitable setbacks, but facing Montreal Road, will facilitate the completion of the Montreal Road revitalization project, which continues into its 8th year, with giving a wider right-of-way to permit trees and a standard sidewalk, as well as an enhanced public realm along Montreal Road and du Rocher, extending to Vanier's old post office. The VCA looks forward to working with planning staff and the property developer to integrate the heritage building into a larger mixed development, which will mark this key location in the French Quarter, consistent with the secondary plan's provision for the French Quarter. A mixed use that integrates the heritage building, its architectural attributes as per the staff report, and its outdoor spaces represents a key opportunity to reinforce Montreal Road's revitalization, reflect Vanier's patrimoine modeste, its francophone heritage, and cultural diversity at this prominent intersection, as well as to offer housing and more retail services to the growing Vanier neighborhood of 18,000 residents. Thank you for your attention. Merci de votre attention.
Thank you so much, Mr. Greenshields, for your delegation and for the advocacy work that's undertaken by the Vanier Community Association. Are there any questions for Mr. Greenshields from members of committee? Seeing none, thank you so much for your submission. The next delegation is Jacob Pollowin, counsel for the applicant.
Good morning, Chairman King, members of the committee. I am only here out of an abundance of caution in case members of the committee have any questions for me, but otherwise nothing to add to the presentation of staff. And I just want to thank staff and legal services for their flexibility and for working well with the applicant to find a good resolution to this.
Thank you so much. I appreciate your presence here and the fact that we've been seeing applicants working with staff and doing so very effectively. So we're very pleased about that. Are there any questions for Mr. Pollowin from members of committee? Seeing none, thank you so much for being here this morning. And I do believe that we might have Linda. Oh. We had a request from Linda Hode from Heritage Ottawa to participate, but she is currently not online. So seeing that she is not, are there any questions to staff on this item? Member Madigan.
Thank you, Chair. Question to staff. The moving of the building on the site, that was part of the discussions and negotiations for the project on the site. Is that correct?
Through you, Chair. Thank you for the question. Yes, it is there's currently no development proposal in for this site. So we're looking forward to a future development proposal and seeing how that might take place.
Okay, but in general, I guess any project, any site that has a heritage building could potentially be discussed if it needs to be moved. It can be done without having a special indication for the property itself. Is that correct?
Right, I see. So I think you're correct, Member Madigan, in that anyone could apply potentially to relocate a building on a property through an application made under the Ontario Heritage Act. What we found here in conversations with the property owners and some of their concerns about the designation was that maybe some of the wording that we had in the Statement of Cultural Heritage Value made it so that would be very difficult to do while maintaining the cultural heritage attributes. So because we had its location on the corner so specifically mentioned, we thought that might make that not possible to do. So that's why we were suggesting revising it.
Thank you for the clarification.
Thank you so much for the question. Are there any other questions from members of committee? Seeing none, is this item carried?
Carried.
Carried. Thank you so much. So this report will be submitted to council on February 25th, 2026. We have no in-camera items this morning, so we will move on to motions of which notice has been previously given. There is a motion from Member Borns concerning Heritage Conservation District criteria. That motion reads that the Built Heritage Committee recommend council approve that the criteria for a Heritage Conservation District be increased from 25% to 90%. We did receive correspondence from the Rockcliffe Park Residents Association as well as Heritage Ottawa. And we do have a delegation on this member motion this morning from Jack Hanna, who is chair of the Heritage Committee of Centertown Community Association. And we're just waiting to see if Jack Hanna is online. And at this time, we do not see him online, so we can now proceed. Sorry. Okay. And I'm just being notified by our committee coordinator that Linda Hode might want to speak to this specific item, and I think she is being admitted now. And I see that Linda Hode has joined us. You have 5 minutes to make your delegation. If you turn off or turn on your microphone as well as your video. Coordinator that Linda Hode might want to speak to this specific item. And I think she is. Thank you so much. We see you, and you can speak to the member's motion.
Now, I'm sorry, I'm not very used to this. I'm much more, I prefer to be there in person. You can blame OC Transpo for the fact that I'm not there in person. To make your delegation. Okay.
So you can definitely proceed, and we'll reset the clock so that you can do that. Microphone as well as your video.
Okay.
Thank you so much. We see you, and you can speak to the member's motion. And Ms. Hode, you might have to mute your YouTube on your browser if you have it running.
Actually, can you hear me now?
Yes, we can.
Okay, I was signed in twice, and I was getting quite an echo. I don't know whether you were. I wasn't actually, I was hoping that Hunter McGill would be able to be there, but I don't know what happened to him. He didn't need a bus to get there. I would like to say that Heritage Ottawa is really quite shocked at this motion, and we're not at all clear as to why Member Burns brought the motion. Heritage Ottawa has, of course, been in existence for over 50 years. We are well aware of the Planning Act and the Ontario Heritage Act permission to create heritage conservation districts. We find that the Heritage Conservation District program in Ottawa has been very successful. It has preserved many important buildings in various parts of the city, and now more so we're moving into more suburban areas, which is an area where, of course, we have not had a lot of individual designations nor heritage district designations. I think our letter outlines quite a few of the reasons why we support the creation of heritage conservation districts, and we would certainly be quite, well, it's simply unthinkable, I guess, is the main reaction. I think you've had a few letters from other heritage conservation district representatives who are very concerned, including Mr. Hanna. So one of the things I think we forgot to indicate, which was suggested by one of our members, the amount of staff time that would be required to work through a 90% requirement for buildings that would meet criteria, the more detailed research that would be required, it would mean that there'd be a lot of other work that wouldn't be getting done. So I think we certainly support the current requirement. I guess one of the things that crossed my mind when I was thinking about this is, are there any municipalities in Ontario that have increased the requirement from 25% as outlined in the Ontario Heritage Act? And I leave that question for your staff or anybody else on the committee who may know the answer to that. Thank you very much.
Thank you so much for your delegations. Are there any questions to Ms. Hode? Seeing none, I just wanted to ask one question, just in terms of the whether there's a consensus, whether you can speak to the idea of a consensus opposing this motion within the heritage community.
We have not had the time to do that kind of consultation. I certainly have heard from a couple of them, but not, I mean, we don't have a tight-knit group, which I guess is one of the things we should be working on. But it's certainly, I haven't heard from anybody who is in favor of the motion. And certainly, as I say, the few consultations I've had or communications I've had are very much opposed.
I appreciate that. And you do have a question from Councillor Leeper.
Thanks, and Linda, good to see you. I'm just wondering if there is any appetite at all to revisit the threshold to make it something in between 25 and 90%. I'm trying to discern Member Bournes's motivations for bringing this and bringing such a high threshold. Modifying the threshold is not something we should do without some significant new study and consultation. But is there a circumstance under which you might consider that the threshold should be 30% or 40% or something like that?
You're asking the wrong person, Councillor Leeper, because very recently Hintonburg was denied a heritage conservation district on the basis that we would not meet the 25%. So I think the staff are they take the responsibility for creating a heritage conservation district very seriously, and they look very carefully at the criteria in the Ontario Heritage Act. And I have great confidence in their ability to search out and to make those difficult decisions. I'm assuming it was as difficult for them as it was for our community heritage people, to refuse a designation and to look at alternatives. And of course, they have created alternatives for heritage conservation districts like the heritage character areas. So there is no push, I don't see, on the part of staff to sort of make sure that, or to cover every part of the city and create heritage conservation districts willy-nilly. They take very seriously the requirement to meet 25%. And as we discovered in Hintonburg, which has a lot of, I think, very important heritage buildings, they made the decision, or made the recommendation, you made the decision, not to create a heritage conservation district.
Yep. Okay. Thank you, Linda.
Thank you so much for your delegation. I don't see any hands raised. Oh, sorry. Okay.
My only concern is that I haven't yet presented any argument in favor of the motion.
And you'll definitely have an opportunity to.
And I will
talk
have
to
an
the
opportunity
motion
to do
at
that.
questions.
And I hope that comments would relate to the motion that I bring and the rationale for it, as opposed to, being without rationale.
And absolutely, as chair, I'll ensure that people speak to the motion. Thank you so much, Linda, for your delegation. We now move to questions to staff as well as comments. Member Borns.
So just some comment. I'm looking particularly and have particular familiarity with the Centertown Heritage District. I know that runs between Elgin and Kent and the Queensway, or a little bit north of there, and somewhere to the north of Somerset. There is certainly one project that resulted from the heritage zone that was positive. The development at Gilmore and O'Connor was constructive and useful. On the other hand, the Metropolitan Church at Bank and Gladstone was a relatively large concession. It involved removing the front of a church, putting it on a building, and it really was the ugliest church in Centertown that was moved to the front of the building. The church at Argyle and O'Connor that we dealt with last meeting, the developer spent at least $1 million. moved the church closer to the street so a high-rise could be built behind it. And why? There was no discussion of housing needs or goals. There was no discussion of parks needs or goals. Heritage was the only winner, in quotation marks, from that proposal. The Centertown Plan a few years ago allowed landmark buildings along Kent and O'Connor and Metcalfe, I guess. Plans for the replacement of the old office building at Kent and Gilmore were 27 stories high. First plan showed some parkland along Kent, which was a nice relief. The second plan showed the retention of the office building. The office building was built in the 1950s, the same period that I was born in. And I must admit, I find absolutely no value in the building, in retaining the building that was shown on the plan of the Centertown Heritage Area as a non-contributing building. The second plan showed retention of that office building, not just the office building, but the cladding of the office building, which is to be removed from the existing office building and added to the outside of a, potentially a mixed-use building. There was no housing discussion. There was no parkland discussion. There is no value in the heritage results of a 1950s office building that wasn't even identified as valuable. These are the results of a huge heritage area, retaining buildings that don't deserve it and ignoring everything else so heritage can, quote, save the day, end quote. The current approach in West Centertown is to use full blocks, both sides of the streets, and the buildings that face it. The result would be designation of a schoolyard, an apartment building, a funeral home parking lot, not to mention, I guess, the obvious beer store and Tim Hortons. Is all of that heritage? Is all of that relevant? Is there advantage in designating that large an area in West Centertown? The result of which would be to designate virtually all of Centertown. So West Centertown, the central area, and the Golden Triangle is to be designated as well, despite the fact that it has newer buildings in it, but that's not a key issue at the moment. It is the same as the Lower Town property that we looked at earlier. Across the street from a heritage area, there is no heritage value. So is the intention to extend the heritage district by creating a fake building that is going to have some red brick on it that would potentially, I don't know, make red brick both sides of the street? I think that we're building an alternative to the planning function and we're calling it heritage. Why not just get the planning function right? Why not just look at the planning function in the context of the heritage zones and decide what needs to be changed as a result of the heritage zones? I will recommend that this motion be referred to staff. I made up the 90%, you know, that there's no question that that is something that I think makes sense, but I'd be happy to look at alternatives that are higher than 25%, which is really not a heritage zone. If you've got 25% heritage buildings or, you know, contributions towards heritage buildings. And something, you know, 90% might be too high a target. So I would ask that this be referred back to staff to get an opinion on, really, as Councillor Leeper suggested, some approach that relates to certainly more than 25% and probably less than 90% as being an appropriate target for heritage zones. Thank you.
So, Member Borns, are you asking us to have this referred to staff because that would require an additional motion?
Yes, and I can prepare the motion if you give me a pen or.
We also have Jack Hanna, who has joined us at this time. He was registered as a delegation. So I'll note that both Councillor Troster and Councillor Leeper will resume debate once we hear from Jack Hanna, who is chair of the Heritage Committee of Centertown Community Association. Thank you so much for joining us, and you have 5 minutes.
And words to talk about this respectfully. And the only word I can come up with is surreal. I think the situation in which we find ourselves is surreal. I hope that in dealing with this motion, this committee will treat the staff of the Heritage Branch with respect. The staff of the Heritage Branch do important and good work, and their time should not be wasted. And I hope the committee will conduct itself in a manner that does not bring the committee into disrepute or disrespect in the public eye. As I say, I think the situation we find ourselves in is surreal. Thank you.
Thank you so much for your delegation. Are there any questions for Mr. Hanna? Member Quinn.
Thank you, Mr. Chair, and thank you for coming today, Mr. Hanna. I guess what I'm going to ask is for you, if you're willing, to comment on the very specific concerns that Member Bourne has raised about projects in Centertown Heritage Conservation Districts in particular, which seems to be have been the impetus for this rather, in my mind, extreme motion. Could you comment on, because I'd be interested to hear what the community associations and others in Centertown feel or think about some of the issues raised by my colleague. Thank you.
Unfortunately, I had a conflict and I only walked into the room 2 minutes ago, so I didn't hear those comments, but I can comment on our projects if you like.
Yeah, please go ahead.
The Centertown Community Association is a big fan of heritage conservation and heritage districts. We have proposed, we are working with City Heritage Branch on 2 heritage districts. One is the Golden Triangle, which is the area from Elgin to the canal. It takes staff about 2 years to go through the process of creating a heritage district. They're about 3/4 of the way through that process now with the Golden Triangle Heritage Conservation District. We've worked very closely with staff. For us, a more interesting proposed district is the one in Centertown West between Kent and Bronson. The CCA has discussed this at great length for half a decade. literally hundreds of person hours have been poured into coming up with a proposal, which we're just finalizing. And in a couple of weeks' time, after a half a decade of work, we're going to be presenting it to the city's heritage branch, a proposal for recommended boundaries for a heritage conservation district. We have conducted walking tours of that area, 4 of them. We've conducted surveys. 29 individuals took part in the surveys to try and assess the heritage merits block by block of that area. We have used the data in the ERA consultants report, and there have been endless meetings and working groups and committees. A lot of interest. I've gotten, since we've made public the proposal we're about to bring to the city for the boundaries for a heritage conservation area, I received 2 kinds of feedback from the community. One is questions like, when I rebuild my porch, what sort of process will I have to go through, was one question I got. Other than that, from about half dozen people, we had a complaint. And the complaint is, my house is not inside the district. Could you please make the district bigger? And we'll be bringing a recommendation to staff. I also want to say we've worked really, really closely with heritage staff every inch of the way for half a decade. Every time we move forward in our thinking, we've run our ideas past the heritage branch, and they have been very thoughtful and gotten back to us, dealing in good faith and in plain English, telling us what they think of what we're doing. I am familiar with the sight of Leslie's eyes rolling. So they don't always agree with us, but they've worked hand in glove with us. We've met with them many times. They've made presentations to both our Heritage Committee, and at the last AGM of the Centertown Community Association, we invited the city's heritage staff to provide the keynote address on heritage districts, and specifically heritage districts in Centertown. So we worked really hard to make sure that we align with provincial legislation and with the professional thinking of the Heritage Branch staff, and it's been a great collaboration, and we're about to move forward. Thank you.
Thank you. I recommend you add Member Bourne on your invitation list. Thank you.
Thank you so much. And you also have questions from Councillor Troster.
Hi, Jack. Thank you so much for being here. Sorry I can't be there in person. You might hear I have a cold. Just to be abundantly clear, so the Centertown Community Association is the elected body representing the neighborhood. Has there been any request by the elected members of the CCA or any of the residents that you represent to change the threshold for heritage designation?
Just to clarify, the Board of Directors of the Centertown Community Association is elected by the membership of the Centertown Community Association, which is about 200 people. So we don't represent the community. That's your job, Councillor, but we represent our members. And no, we've never had a proposal such as this or anything even faintly like this brought forward. And I would point out that Mr. Bournes was actually involved up until about 8-9 months ago in our efforts, and then he withdrew.
Okay. And just to be clear, I've received no request of this nature in my office as the elected representative for the ward. And just to clarify one thing, because Member Bournes suggested that a heritage designation for neighborhood would automatically add heritage designation to a parking lot or to a Tim Hortons. Is that true to your understanding?
No, the Heritage Branch has long experience dealing with non-contributing properties, and the Tim Hortons and the beer store would be non-contributing properties.
Thank you very much. I want to thank you very much for your efforts. And frankly, I would like to recommend that this committee not refer this motion to staff and that we simply defeat it. It did not come from the community. It is not supported by the Centertown Community Association, and it's not supported by staff. Thank you.
Thank you so much, Member Bournes.
Thanks very much. If we look at the north side of Lisgar, from Kent to Lyon, it seems to have an apartment building, a schoolyard. The south side seems to have a couple of relatively newish and relatively poorly designed apartment buildings at the corner. what would make that an attractive block to include in the project?
So you're saying, why did we include Lisgar in our proposal?
No, specifically Lisgar between Kent and Lyon.
I would have to look at Google Maps, but I believe at the corner of Lisgar and Lyon, there's a rather, it's now residences, but it was once a corner store. And the buildings on each side of it, to the north and to the west, all have been impeccably maintained. So it's a magnificent heritage resource. One of the most beautiful heritage buildings in all of Centertown is on the south side of Lisgar, closer to Percy. And there's several others. I mean, and as I say, staff is perfectly capable of dealing with non-contributing buildings, that is, buildings that do not have heritage merit. This is all just, Heritage 101. They can handle that.
So what were the guidelines that you were given from staff as to what should be included in a zone?
Sure. Their main concern was that it to be defendable, that it have strong heritage character. They also suggested that it should have roughly straight borders so that people can comprehend it. I'm trying to think of other considerations.
Whole blocks? Was that?
Oh yeah. You don't want to use partial blocks because you don't want to use partial blocks.
And both sides of blocks?
Both sides was preferred but not mandatory.
And the opposite side of the street?
Isn't that both sides?
Well, when you come to an end part, such as Percy, you've included the buildings to the west of Percy.
In some cases, I believe we have. I'd have to look at my notes.
Yeah, you didn't include the curling club. I must admit that. Why would you not include the curling?
Member Borns, we should be talking specifically to the motion. It sounds like we're talking to a specific application.
Then
in terms of more questions for you, Mr. Hanna, Member Legault.
Actually, this question is for the actual motion. I was hoping to ask it to Member Borns. Not sure when that opportunity will be.
Well, right now, procedurally, we will have a motion of referral to staff that will take place after questions to Mr. Hanna. And then once that's introduced, any debate would be limited to that referral motion.
Okay, I will lower my hand.
Thank you so much. I don't see any more questions for you, Mr. Hanna. So thank you so much for your delegation and for the work and the advocacy that you undertake in the community. We appreciate it.
Right back at you. I appreciate your work. Thank you very much.
Thank you. And at this time, we do have a motion of referral to staff before us. It has been circulated to members that the motion requiring 90% heritage buildings in heritage areas be referred to staff for a proposal greater than 25% and possibly lower than 90%. So that motion is on the floor. Member Quinn.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. My comments on the motion. Well, I was stunned when it first appeared, and I was against it for reasons that would take longer than the time we have allotted today. But I think after hearing from Member Borns, my feelings are even stronger because clearly this motion, which would have very sweeping implications for the city of Ottawa.
And Member Quinn, sorry to interrupt, but of course, this is a motion to refer to staff, so we have to deal with the specifics within that motion.
Okay, sorry, I'm not.
Yeah.
Okay, so so would this be my opportunity then to say that I support Councillor Troster's recommendation that we vote on this
This
and not refer it to staff.
This would be an opportunity to speak to the specific motion on referral. If the motion fails, then we would be dealing with the original motion in which you'd be able to speak to that motion.
Okay. So, yeah, to refer it to staff? No. Thank you.
That's clear. Member Madigan.
Press someone similar. There's lots of things that we comment on the motion and its need, but for, recommending this go to staff, I would not recommend it go to staff.
Thank you. Member Legault.
I do not recommend this goes to staff.
Thank you for those comments. Seeing no other hands raised, let's have a vote on the motion to refer to staff. Recorded vote, please.
Member Quinn.
No.
Member Madigan.
No.
Councillor Troster.
No.
Member Legault.
No.
Councillor Leeper.
No.
Member Borns.
Yes.
Vice Chair Plant
No.
and Chair King.
No.
7 nays, 1 yay.
Thank you so much, Committee Coordinator. We now resume with questions and debate concerning the original motion that had been put on the floor. Are there any questions, Member Quinn?
Thank you. Sorry about that confusion before. I just wanted to stress that what appears to be a motion that as I was saying, was going to have sweeping implications for heritage conservation, existing and future heritage conservations in Ottawa, seems to be based on some concerns about quite specific projects within Centertown. So I think this is trying to deal with a small issue with a massive jackhammer. And I urge my colleague to work closely with Mr. Hanna's team that are working with staff to really discuss what areas of Centertown will be, it will be part of the any potential future districts. And just in terms of the building on the corner of Gilmore and Kent, I was very much a part as member of this committee, the discussion around that. And it is I wasn't born in the 50s, but I was born in the decade afterwards. But I do remember that, it is tough sometimes to appreciate mid-century architecture. And but at the time, the applicant was commended for their effort to include an existing building within the development for both environmental and ecological reasons. It saved a very massive structure from being hauled off to landfill. And when we have existing buildings like that, and they can be adapted into a new project and used, I think this is a winner for the city and for the environment. And also, and Councillor King, you can correct me if I'm wrong, but this committee really, our parameters are shaped quite tightly, and we are told that we have to stick to our knitting, and that is heritage. So housing issues and green space, we are really not mandated to handle those kinds of issues. So I don't think we should be scolded for not doing so, if I may say so. But at any rate, those are, I think, I would recommend that there are probably solutions to concerns that you have, Member Borns, within the community of Centertown. And those are my comments. Thank you. Thank you, Chair.
Thank you so much, Member Quinn, and I'd like to just address one of your concerns since you mentioned me directly. It's known that I give wider latitude in this committee to talk about other issues, and that might have emerged because I might have been the only chair of a committee who was appointed during COVID. And so we ensured that for the sake of transparency and accountability, that there was fulsome discussion and fulsome presentations at committee. So despite the fact that there's wide latitude, I want to really reify your point that our remit as a committee is to deal with Part 4 and Part 5 of the Ontario Heritage Act, which is, in my mind, as legitimate in terms of its supremacy of consideration as the Planning Act. Councillor Leeper.
Thank you very much, Chair. Just, I think, a question of clarification around the process of creating heritage conservation districts. There will be a request from the community. There will be a suggestion from staff. There is study of an area, and then a heritage conservation district is finally proposed. Now, before staff can recommend the creation of a heritage conservation district, they at minimum have to demonstrate that it has met that 25% threshold. But to staff, is it then open to council to refuse the staff recommendation to create a heritage conservation district on the basis that council feels generally that no, this one, even though it meets the bare minimum 25%, we're looking for more?
Through you, Mr. Chair, yes, absolutely. Heritage planning staff provide professional planning advice to this committee and to council, and this committee and council make that decision.
Yep. So if a member feels that a heritage conservation district that's being recommended for implementation by staff is even if it meets the bare minimum threshold as set out in the statute, they are still able to say no. We don't consider that this is the right one, or to modify the boundaries that have been recommended by staff to modify various different attributes of the heritage conservation district. So I think the opportunity to push back at a staff recommended heritage conservation district is a political one, and I think members should avail themselves of that when it comes forward. But I don't see that we should constrain our staff from recommending HCDs on the basis of the tools that are available in the statute. So thank you, Chair.
Thank you so much, Councillor Leeper. Member Madigan.
Thank you. Just a couple of comments. Just doing some casual reading about heritage conservation districts around the world. Like, there are a wide range of criteria. Some areas don't even have a minimum percentage to define and guide the definition of a district. Others might go as high as 60%. So increasing what we have already as a standard set by the provincial government higher than that seems not required. As it is, the provincial government went through a lot of its own studies and research to set that percentage. And we understand that the current government is not the best friend to heritage. So the current percentage seems to be, the milestone to meet and not to change it. So I think this is a debate that, if there is actually a widespread debate for a particular heritage conservation district by the people in the district, that will change the dynamic of defining what that district is. But in general, as I understand it, most districts have had the support of the people within it, generally. Of course, there are people who go counter that. But going to the point, we always like to hear discussion and alternative viewpoints if there's a need to discuss it. But going forward, I think what we have right now still sets the standard. Thank you.
Thank you so much for those comments. I don't see any other hands. Oh, Member Borns.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. My concern really is that the decision to include entire blocks and to include both sides of blocks results in incredibly low ratios of suspected heritage properties. I would argue that staff needs to change those approaches, and the community needs to recognize as well that the purpose of heritage zones is not to achieve planning goals, but is to achieve heritage goals. It's to save properties that require saving and to identify those properties that need to be put in a zone or an area. Property owners have no problem identifying whether or not they are within a zone. They look up the zoning. They can find out whether they're in a heritage zone. The idea that a heritage zone needs to run from a street to a street and a street to a street is not consistent with property owner requirements. Maybe it's consistent with planning department requirements or heritage area requirements, but it's not required from the point of view of property owners or property tenants. So I would argue that we need to eliminate the need, the desire to go across streets where there's no heritage buildings and to use entire blocks where there's no heritage buildings. I will perhaps, I understand this motion will go down, and I'll move that as a separate motion at another meeting.
Member Legault.
Yes, thank you. Member Bournes, I'm trying to understand where you're coming from. And like, is this a density issue? Like, you want to be able to create higher density on those blocks? And I'm asking you this just because we will be working together at least until the end of, you know, this 3-year term, and I think it's important that I understand your perspective. So like I had the transcript on, and I was trying to read your speech, and I just don't I thought at one point it was to kind of abolish the heritage character districts and sort of cancel that as part of the heritage programming and move it to the planning department. But is it more that you want to sort of tighten up the boundaries of these heritage character districts, or is it again a density thing that is really with, like, it's outside of our control? It's not within our mandate.
I wish to tighten the boundaries of the heritage conservation districts.
Okay. Okay. Thank you.
I don't see any other hands, but as the committee considers this motion, I'd like to hear from our heritage planning staff to better understand how the current approach towards heritage conservation districts is working in practice. So my first question is, has the 25% threshold been applied or tested since its adoption? And if so, what data or outcomes has staff observed to date?
Thank you, Mr. Chair. The 25% requirement was only enacted through the Ontario Heritage Act in 2022. Staff have not brought forward any heritage conservation district plans or new heritage conservation districts in that time. What the committee will have seen are a number of the heritage conservation district feasibility assessments where we have been applying the 25% test towards the potential to meet for the district as a whole, rather than a building by building analysis. What I can say is that we are, as has been alluded to in this meeting, working through the Golden Triangle Heritage Conservation District study. And at this point in time, I can sort of tell the committee that right now over 70% of the properties within the study area meet at least 2 of those criteria. That being said, there are a number of properties that do not meet those criteria, and we will be recommending a boundary adjustment when the final HCD plan comes forward. So staff are very much aware of this, and we are working through it, but we have not brought anything forward yet.
Thank you for that clarification, especially around heritage conservation district boundaries, which I think differ from citywide criteria. How many of the city's existing heritage conservation districts would meet a 90% threshold today? Which would not?
Well, as I said, the 25% threshold is very new. That being said, since the inception of the city's Heritage Conservation District program in the 1980s. Property by property surveys have been undertaken and properties have been evaluated using similar criteria to what is in place today. That being said, I would argue, without having done the analysis, that none of the existing HCDs would meet the 90% threshold.
Are there any districts currently under study or consideration? And what percentage of contributing properties do they currently meet?
We have a large work program of heritage conservation districts coming up. The only one that is currently under active study is the Golden Triangle study that I just talked about, where we are looking at, in draft form, potentially approximately 70% of the properties meeting 2 or more criteria.
Parts 4 and 5 of the Ontario Heritage Act recognize heritage value tied to landmarks and planning intent at the district level. Can staff explain how these criteria are applied together when evaluating a proposed heritage conservation district?
Again, I think the issue here is that we have a very new framework from 2022. We have very little guidance on how we should be using this framework from the Ministry of Citizenship and Multiculturalism, and we have few examples of other municipalities around the province that have brought things forward. So what I can tell you is how we have in detail analyzed how we think we should use the criteria to assess a district. And so what we're doing, just as an example for Golden Triangle, is that and we've done this for the feasibility assessments as well, is that we're looking at the potential district or the study area as a whole and saying, okay, based on our research and analysis of this area and its sense of place and its the way in which it's developed and its contributions to the story of the national capital, which criteria would the district as a whole meet? And so we, for instance, for Golden Triangle, we're saying, okay, well, the whole district might meet the design criteria around physical value. It might meet the historical and associative criteria around theme. It might meet the contextual criteria as it relates to intact streetscapes. And there may be some properties that might meet that landmark criteria because of their being planned around something like the Rideau Canal. So if we take that, that's say 4 criteria out of 9. Then we have gone building by building and analyzed each building only against those 4 criteria. So in fact, we're raising the bar on ourselves because we now have to meet 2 out of 4 in order to meet that 25%.
So I suppose it's safe to say that the 25% threshold is intended to function as a council-approved minimum starting point, allowing higher percentages to be evaluated on a case-by-case basis rather than as a fixed requirement.
Yes, I would agree. And I would also suggest that the department would be highly unlikely to ever bring forward a district where only 25% of the properties meet 2 or more criteria.
So what is staff's professional opinion on increasing the threshold from 25% to 90%? Particularly with respect to its impact on future HCD designations?
I think from our perspective, there are 2 main points. One, I think that 90% is an extremely high bar. 25% may be a low bar, but it's the minimum. And I think further to Councillor Leeper's point, council always has the ability to say no to a district. The second point I would make is that I think it's premature to present this as a problem when we haven't actually tested it. It's a very, very new framework. It hasn't been used. And I think we are in a position whereby we don't have enough data to understand whether or not it is a low bar or whether 90% is a high bar.
I appreciate those answers from our professional heritage planning staff. I do have one more additional question to the Office of the Clerk, and I'm just wondering if the Clerk's office can clarify what access members of committee have to staff and the Clerk for procedural or technical questions related to this motion, including the ability to seek clarification outside of committee meetings.
Thank you, Chair. Just to note that we are available at any time to meet with members to provide procedural advice or guidance or to review wording and can also include legal and the functional department, in this case PDB, in advance. That being said, a member may present a motion on the floor, as was done, and then is before the committee for voting. But we would certainly meet with any member to provide any type of advice in terms of the mandate of the committee, the terms of reference, and any future or ongoing matters, including drafting of motions.
I appreciate the support as well, the very professional support that is offered by the clerk's office to provide support to members if required. Thank you, colleagues. I also do want to address Member Bourne's motion directly. I'm vehemently opposed to changing the Heritage Conservation District criteria. The current 25% threshold comes from Ontario Regulation 9/6 under the Ontario Heritage Act and represents a carefully balanced provincial standard. A 90% threshold is not a higher standard, it is an impossible standard. Even our most historically significant neighborhoods rarely have 90% of properties meeting heritage criteria due to natural evolution, post-war infill, and past demolitions. To put this in concrete terms, a neighborhood that currently qualifies with 25 heritage properties out of 100 would need 90 heritage properties out of 100. That is a 260% increase. This motion would make Heritage Conservation District designation functionally impossible for the vast majority of our neighborhoods. Rather than strengthening heritage protection, this motion would eliminate one of our most important tools. It would result in fewer areas receiving heritage protection and more heritage properties remaining vulnerable. We would be leaving heritage properties more at risk, not less. I have seen no evidence that the 25% threshold has failed us. If there are concerns about HDC designation or management, let us address them through evidence-based policy development. And I think that we've heard from our professional heritage planning staff that that will require time, that we need time to ascertain that. But we should not eliminate an effective tool without understanding why or what we are trying to achieve, especially if we are talking specifically about Heritage Conservation District borders rather than city-wide criteria. For that reason, I'll be voting against this motion and urge my colleagues to do the same. And on a personal note, I would just say that this, in my estimation, is one of the least informed motions that I've encountered on my time in this committee. I also want to remind all committee members that you have access to legal and planning staff advice when drafting motions. A motion of this magnitude deserves advanced consultation with staff who could have identified specific issues of concern to the member and help craft more effective alternatives. At this point, I believe we should proceed with a recorded vote.
Member Quinn,
No.
Member Madigan,
No.
Councillor Troster,
No.
Member Legault,
No.
Councillor Leeper,
No.
Member Bournes,
Yes.
Vice Chair Plant,
No.
Chair King.
No.
7 yeas, 1 yay. 7 nays, 1 yay.
The item fails on division. The next item is notices of motions. Are there any new notices of motions? Seeing none, are there any inquiries? Seeing none, other business. And we do have 2 items being forwarded by staff under other business. I will ask Councillor Plant to read that the rules of procedure be waived for these 2 items. The first one being addition of 1500 Bronson Avenue and 933 Heron Road to the City of Ottawa's Heritage Register under Section 27(3) of the Ontario Heritage Act.
Yes, thank you so much, Chair. Excuse me. Sorry, can you scroll up a bit? It's not at the bottom for me. I only see the moved by. Thank you. Whereas limitations to the Ontario Heritage Act mean that council cannot issue a notice of intention to designate a property subject to a prescribed event if that property is not listed on the municipal heritage register at the time of the prescribed event. And whereas Canada Lands Company is preparing a master plan for, please scroll.
And we have to vote on the waiver first.
Okay. Go ahead. That the rules of procedure be waived to consider the matter below at the February 10th, 2026 meeting of Built Heritage Committee due to timing considerations to preserve council's ability to issue notice of intention to designate. Woo, thank you.
Carried.
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 And now we can move forward with main portion.
Thank you. Whereas limitations in the Ontario Heritage Act mean that council cannot issue a notice of intention to designate a property subject to a prescribed event if that property is not listed on the municipal heritage register at the time of prescribed events. And whereas Canada Lands Company CLC is preparing a master plan for Confederation Heights in tandem with a city-initiated secondary plan and zoning bylaw amendment, and whereas the city-initiated secondary plan and zoning bylaw amendment may be prescribed events for the purposes of the Ontario Heritage Act, and whereas the former CBC headquarters, known as the Edward Drake Building, located at 1500 Broston Avenue and 933 Heron Road, are not listed on the city's heritage register. And whereas the property owner has no objection to the listing on the property of the heritage register or its anticipated designation under Part 4 of the Ontario Heritage Act, and whereas the Ontario Heritage Act provides that non-designated properties may be included on a municipal register if council believes the property to be one of cultural heritage value or interest, and if the property meets one or more of the criteria outlined in Ontario Regulation 906. And whereas staff have determined that the Edward Drake Building at 1500 Bronson and 933 Heron Road is highly recognizable landmark, an outstanding example of expressionist architecture and modernist design, holding direct associations with the CBC and renowned acoustician and chief architect of the CBC, David Gorton McKinstry, therefore satisfying more than one of the criteria. Therefore, be it resolved that Built Heritage Committee recommend that council list 1500 Bronson Avenue and 933 Heron Road on the City of Ottawa's Heritage Register under Section 27(3) of the Ontario Heritage Act in order to preserve council's ability to issue notice of intention to designate after the prescribed event has occurred. Therefore, be it resolved that the rules of procedure be waived to consider this matter on February 11th, 2026 council meeting. Merci.
Thank you so much, Vice Chair Plante, for bringing that forward on the floor. We do have Catherine Constantine, who is from Canada Lands Company. If there are specific questions to be posed on this item, otherwise, are there any questions to staff or to the registered delegate? Member Madigan.
Yes, thank you, Chair. Question on ownership: is the building still considered property of the federal government, Public Works, or has it been shifted over to Crown Corporation?
It is still under ownership of PSPC at this time.
Thank you. The reason I'm asking is because we had then at the last meeting a question about designating the former RCF mess, and one of the resistance was that it was owned by the federal government and shouldn't be designated. It's just interesting that designating this building, these properties are open to be done in a favorable way. So thank you very much.
Thank you. Any other questions? Seeing none, is this item carried?
Carried.
Carried.
Carried. Thank you so much. So this matter will be considered at the council meeting for February 11th, 2026. The next item is demolition of the buildings located at 227-229, 231-233, and 235-237 St. Patrick Street. And I will once again ask Vice Chair Plante to waive the rules of procedure to advance that motion so that we can waive the rules of procedure.
That the rules of procedure be waived to consider the matter below at the February 10th, 2023 meeting of the Built Heritage Committee due to correction timeline.
Is this item approved? Carried. Thank you. So we can go ahead with the main portion, Vice Chair Plant.
Whereas in September 2024, through report ACS 2024 PDB RHU 0069, a heritage permit was issued for demolition of the building located at 227, 229, 231, 233, 235, 237 St. Patrick Street under Section 42 of the Ontario Heritage Act. And whereas the heritage permit included a coordination requiring that the registered owner of the property to enter into agreement with the city to be registered on title, requiring interim landscaping and maintenance on the site until redevelopment takes place. And whereas the owner of the property has neither entered into said agreement nor taken any steps towards demolition, and whereas the 2024 engineer's report indicated that the buildings were in poor condition and required demo, and whereas since that time the buildings have been continued to deteriorate with no maintenance or rehabilitation, whereas Building Code Services issued an order to remedy an unsafe building on each property on January 21, 2026 with a correction timeline of February 20th, 2026. Therefore, be it resolved that the Built Heritage Committee recommend to Council, 1, waive the condition of the heritage permit in the instance that the city undertakes the demolition of the buildings according to the order of remedy of an unsafe building issued for each property on January 21, 2026. And could you scroll, please? And staff be directed to ensure the interim landscaping of the property in accordance with the heritage permit. Thank you.
Thank you so much for bringing this item to the floor. Councillor Leeper has questions.
Thanks. I think it's reasonably clear, but whose responsibility, and particularly financial responsibility, would it be to landscape the property in the instance the city does the demolition?
Through you, Mr. Chair, that is something we're working through with Building Code Services. The property would need to be put into an interim condition post-demolition, so we expect that it would be part of the tax rolling that would occur as part of the demolition of the properties if the city undertakes it.
So, and just to make sure I'm clear on this, the city may end up demolishing these properties, and this motion would relieve the city of the requirement to implement that temporary landscaping?
No, that's actually not entirely correct, partially correct. So this motion is intended to basically set the city up so that in the instance that the owner does not comply, that we are able to proceed with the demolition without having that registered agreement about the landscaping. And so we've through this motion recommended that council waive the condition of the registered agreement, but direct staff to landscape the property to an interim condition should we undertake that demolition in accordance with the approved heritage permit.
May I take a look at that second clause of the be it resolved?
Yes, and I think we're going to bring that back up for you, Councillor Leeper.
Thank you. It's I guess I'm wondering, what is the accountability on this? Staff be directed to ensure the interim landscaping. So if the property winds up not being landscaped by the end or midsummer or whatever, I'm sorry, the wording is just a little bit unclear. Is it clear from this wording that the city would have to pay for that interim landscaping?
I might seek legal's opinion on that, but that is the intention.
Chair, yes, the intent is if in the event that the owner does not comply and the city goes in to demolish the buildings, that the city undertake the landscaping that was originally contemplated by the heritage permit, but that would be rolled. My expectation is that that would be rolled in on the tax roll with the demolition fees in accordance with the Building Code Act.
Okay, thank you.
Thank you. Seeing no other questions, is this item approved?
Carried.
Carried. Thank you so much. So this item will also be considered by council at on February 11th, 2026. Oh, sorry. This item will be going to council on February the 25th. So thank you so much. That is all of our substantive business. We are adjourned. The next meeting of Built Heritage Committee will be on Tuesday, March 10th, 2026. Thank you so much, everybody.
Thank you, Chair.
Thank you.